Hello, everyone. It is Xanet Pailet, and we are here on Friday talking love, sex, and intimacy with Xanet. So, the question that we're going to focus on today is what is sex? How do we define sex? But before we get to how do we define sex, I need to talk. Hi, Lynn. I need to share about how I've been feeling this week surrounding the events of Charlottesville and then the response from the administration. And I guess what and I know that it's been a really hard week for a lot of us, and I don't usually share a lot of my political views on Facebook, and I just have to say that this has been a really unhappy and upsetting week, and I don't think I've been as distressed since right after the election. And it happened really for, a variety of different reasons. Just seeing, I ended up watching the Vice video about the white supremacist group getting prepared for Charlottesville and the whole thing. That was incredibly challenging and hard to watch and upsetting to see it happen in 2017. And I think perhaps even more upsetting in some ways was that there were so many young men involved in this movement, many of whom who didn't even know who David Duke was. And so it's not like it's older people and this is going to end. There's this whole new generation, and it's just very upsetting for me. And there is a connection between the whole alt-right group and white supremacy and sexuality and sexual oppression and misogyny as well. And in fact, hey Muriel, hey Steve, Amy Jo Goddard, who is a really well-known sexual expert, hey Sabrina, put out a really interesting blog this morning around sexuality and white supremacy, where she just made the connection between the way in which we've created this white patriarchal, especially in this administration, society that's trying to take care of other people, and how so many of the men on the alt-right are feeling disempowered by women, and women's sexuality is a big part of that as well. So I'm just seeing it, and from so many different perspectives, myself as a healer and a leader and an educator, just challenged inside of myself as to what do I do? Do I does this become a bigger platform of mine, or do I continue just to do my work individually under the theory that healing one person, as my teacher Irene Lyon says, like when you heal one person's nervous system, you start to heal the world's nervous system. And I struggle with that, and I'm trying to figure out how best to participate. And I guess one of the ways I'm doing that is just to express what I'm noticing myself. And I have to say also that, I'm actually having a lot of challenges with what I'm seeing in terms of Confederate statutes coming down, because that is a part of American history, and we can't erase that part of American history. And that's what, the people who try to erase, I can't believe what they're called right now, but the Nazi non-believers just try to take it out of our history books. And I'm just really struggling with, even though I understand the intentions are right, I'm really struggling with that response as well inside of myself, because I think that history is here for a reason, and it's a way for us to teach our children and to remember what actually happened in this world not that long ago, in this country not that long ago. So it's just something I'm really struggling with right now, and I wanted to share that on Facebook Live. And I don't think I have anything else to say. I would suggest, if I really love this article from Amy Jo, and I don't know if it's on a blog, but she sent it. I'll try to post it somehow on Facebook. Okay, taking a breath. So The sex topic that I want to talk about today is, what is sex? And I know that when I say that, people are like, well, what do you mean, what is sex? We all know what sex is. Sex is like when there's penis, vagina intercourse, and that's what sex is. And I think that part of the problems that we have in terms of not having good sexual communication with our partners and not having a really good sex lives has to do with the way in which we define sex in our world and in our country. And having this very, very narrowly defined view of sex holds us back from being able to experience the whole realm of activities that sex can be. When we define sex as one particular outcome, there's going to be a penis and it's going to go in a vagina, and maybe there's going to be an orgasm, we limit all of the possibilities of the way in which we can connect and enjoy our pleasure. And we also continue to focus on there being an outcome and a goal. And that goal is penis, vagina, penetration, and or orgasm. And all of that, first of all, it takes us out of our body, and it takes us out of being really present with our partner. And as I know you've heard me talk about before, one of the ways in which we can have much better and juicier and more connected sex is to be really present in our bodies. And when we have a outcome like, oh, we've got to get to intercourse, that does not allow us to be present. So I want to posit, or I want to suggest, that we significantly expand the definition of what sex is. That we expand the definition of sex and we open it up to so many more possibilities. What if, for example, we were to define sex as anytime you have any type of erotic connection with a partner or with yourself, right? Think about what that would mean if it's just about having some sort of erotic connection. I know for me, I've had erotic connections with people where we're just touching each other's hands in a very soft and sensual manner, and I can actually start feeling arousal showing up in my body and in the other person's body. Hey Fred, hey Jesse, you guys can send me hearts. I like hearts. I need that confirmation. What if we were to say that was sex? Why not, right? Why not allow ourselves to explore all of those other types of activities and redefine that as sex? Could kissing be sex? Absolutely. Could telling each other erotic stories be sex? Absolutely. When we start to really open up the definition of sex, there's a whole world of ways in which we can connect with a partner or with ourselves and express ourselves sexually. So rather than looking at sex as this like one-way thing, we've got to have intercourse or we're not having sex, which is what so many couples tell me. Well, we're not having sex at all because we're not having intercourse. Sex can be on this beautiful, large continuum. This continuum from we're just holding hands and maybe whispering sweet nothings into each other's ears, to we're having like massive, wonderful, out of this world intercourse. I'm trying not to use any other words on Facebook because I know that they've been really censoring these Facebook Lives. So everything in between is also delicious and is also part of having sex. You know, I was seeing a couple recently, and they have been married for, I think, 28 years. And they're basically living in a sexless marriage. And I mean really a sexless marriage, similar to the sexless marriage I lived in, which I don't think they've had sex for 10 or 15 years. It's been a long time. But they're very well connected with each other. They love each other, and they're committed to changing this and to start to reignite their sex life. And it's been really fun and interesting working with them over the last couple of months to just help them start to reconnect with each other at the softest level, which for them was just starting to hold hands, which they basically not touched each other for a long, long time. And one of the things they told me, as things are starting to change in their relationship, is that one of the most significant changes that they've experienced based on the work that we've done is when I help them redefine what sex actually meant. And what the female said, the woman said, was that by doing that, it took the pressure off of her. And this is very common for a lot of women. Women feel pressure to go to intercourse. The minute that their partner starts initiating something, they're feeling pressure to go to intercourse. Actually, usually both partners are feeling the pressure to go to intercourse. And maybe for a variety of different reasons, you really don't want intercourse to be on the table for a lot of different places, but it doesn't mean that you might not want some intimacy and some connection with your partner. And so for them, by helping them redefine sex to be this really long spectrum, they were able to say, like, wow, we actually started having more sex, Xanet. Like, we've been touching each other, and we've been cuddling with each other, and we've been looking in each other's eyes in ways in which we're starting to feel this buzz of erotic connection. And that's a really significant, for them, a really significant change for a couple that hasn't had sex in, 15 years, just to be able to feel like they can start to be sexual with each other and not have to go to that place of intercourse, which they're just frankly not ready for yet. And so opening up this definition can really start to change the experience. So I just want you to think about that for yourselves. Like, how can you change your mindset? A lot of ways in which I work with individuals and couples, and in helping people reconnect with their sexuality, is talking about changing the mindset. Because that's where it starts, right? Like, changing the mindset that sex, it only means penis-vagina intercourse. It only means penetration. It only means orgasm. To changing your mindset that anything that you do, sorry about that, forgot to shut my Google Voice off. Note to self, that makes you feel good and connected is what sex is. And and this whole changing your mindset about the definition of sex also goes to changing the definition of what pleasure is. So I hear this all the time, right? It's the same thing. We're also caught on this expectation that pleasure is about the end goal of orgasm, both for men and for women. And I want to challenge you on that. What if pleasure, just like sex, is on this continuum? this continuum from a 0 or a 1 to a 10. And who's to say, except for yourself, because you're judging, that having pleasure at a 2 or a 3 is really that much better than having pleasure at a 10, right? That is completely subjective, a subjective matter that we impose upon ourselves in our own life and in our own sexuality. So if you can enjoy having pleasure at a 2 or a 3, and let's think about it, guys, like having pleasure at a 2 or a 3, that kind of level, that can be really hot. That can be really fun. What if you were just to allow yourself to stay there and to experience that? This is very similar to what I do when I work with men who have issues around early ejaculation, right? What happens in that case is a man will go from an experience of a 2 to a 9 in a very, very short period of time. And so what we do is we're like, well, what if we hang out at this like sensation of a 3 or a 4, and we can stay there for 5 minutes and then move up the ladder, right? So it's the same principle of enjoying smaller, as we're judging it, smaller, lesser levels of pleasure, as much as you do that highly wonderful, oh my God, what in the heck world was that type of orgasmic response that you might have. And I think you'll notice that the more you can hang out at these lower levels of pleasure, and the more you can hang out and redefine what sex is, the more enjoyment you're going to have out of that experience, because there are all of these nuances that we have in our body when we begin to have sexual arousal. And, you know, if we zip past those nuances, if we go from a 2 to an 8 right away, we're missing all of these juicy sensations and feelings and experiences of pleasure between the 2 and the 8, right, in this middle part of the scale. So that's what I want to suggest that you think about. And then if you have a partner or not, even if you don't have a partner, just practice this over the weekend. Practice this over the next week. Really think about redefining sex to be this whole continuum. Anything that brings any type of erotic connection to you, whatever that is, by yourself or with a partner. And redefine, think about pleasure of being on this wide spectrum and not judging where you are along it, but just enjoying where you are and trying to hang out at some of those lower levels for longer periods of time. You may be very surprised about how you respond to that. Okay, so that's it for Friday's Talking Love, Sex, and Intimacy with Xanet. Thank you guys for sharing your time. Thanks for letting me share my feelings around the Charlottesville situation and what's going on in the country. Oh, thanks for the hearts and the sunbursts. I really appreciate that. And we'll see you next Friday talking Love, Sex, and Intimacy with Xanet. If you like this, please share it with your friends. That would be beautiful. Have a wonderful, wonderful, peaceful weekend. Ciao.